Coming up on episode 4 of the Keto Kamp podcast, I break down how to follow a plant-based ketogenic diet and how the conventional medical system fails us so miserably. The problem with most conventional doctors, they've been trained so masterfully to diagnose disease and match it to a medication. Will Cole talked about this. He shared, you wouldn't go to your mechanic and ask your mechanic about gardening advice. So you wouldn't go to your doctor and ask your doctor about nutrition advice. They're just not trained on that. I'm a certified functional health practitioner who's on a mission to educate 1 billion people. I've been obese for most of my life. From rock bottom to the top of the mountain, I am passionate about studying ancient healing strategies like fasting and the ketogenic diet and curating this information on the Keto Kamp podcast. My goal is to bring you the thought leaders in this space. My name is Azadi, and I want to thank you for spending part of your day with me. On this episode of the Keto Kamp podcast, I'm going to dig a little deeper into Dr. Will Cole's Ketotarian book. Dr. Will Cole was just a previous guest on this show, and he shared amazing information on a plant-based ketogenic diet to get the best of both worlds, the ketogenic space and the vegan vegetarian space. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into his principles, and even if you're not a vegetarian or vegan, definitely it's going to be helpful to adopt more of these plant-based principles. So that's what we do here on Friday's episodes. We dig a little bit deeper into the previous episode, and we're also going to talk about the conventional medicine system, the way that it's set up, how it's rigged, how to look for the right doctor who's going to work with you and listen to what you have to say. So I'm going to share a little bit about that, and you're going to get so much from this episode. So before we get started here, I would love to just for you to pause this real quick and rate and review this Keto Kamp podcast. It means so much to me and to the show and to the message we're bringing out there about keto and fasting. If you could just take a few seconds to rate and review this podcast, give it an honest review, I would really appreciate that as I sip my keto coffee here, which, by the way, Purity Coffee is my favorite go-to keto coffee. If you want to get the same coffee that I drink, go to www.ketokampcoffee.com and get yourself the world's healthiest keto coffee beans. I want to start here with my story of veganism. I was a strict vegan for a year and a half, about 6 years ago. And the reason I did it is because I read the China study. I read a few other books before I really knew how to understand research. And I believed that it was the healthiest diet, the end-all diet for us all. So I went all in. And I got some really good results, actually, in the beginning. I felt better. I was doing CrossFit. My workouts were better, surprisingly so. Sleep was better. Skin got better. And around the 4 or 5 month mark, I hit this wall, which I now call the vegan wall. And I plateaued. I started to really get sore in between my workouts and took me a longer time to recover. My sex drive was diminishing. My hormones were getting wonky. My skin was getting acne and just skin issues, and I just didn't feel good. But you see, this is the mistake I made. I put myself in a dogmatic box here, and I still thought that, hey, this is the diet, for me and for the world. I'm saving the planet. Eating plants. Even though I was eating a lot of gluten and I was eating a lot of soy products, it was hard to get my protein without that. So I kept going, and I was traveling a lot. I remember at this time of my life, and I kept going for 15 months, almost a year and a half, until I got to the point where I had to make a change. My health was deteriorating. So I started studying other guys like Paul Chek, the godfather of holistic health, Mr. Paul Chek. And he put a lot of information out there about the dangers of a vegan diet. And if you stick with it too long, it could cause problems and you dry yourself out. And I started researching it some more. And this is actually the point of my life that I came across the research of the ketogenic diet. So it was about 6 years ago. So I decided to take some blood work done before I got off the vegan diet and then experiment with the ketogenic diet. And what happened was I felt so much better again. I got amazing results. And 5 months later, I retested and everything improved. Not only that, I felt better, I looked better. So that's when I started really getting into the ketogenic diet and getting educated on that and the benefits of that. And that was my experiment with the vegan diet. And I see so many people, and I have friends who might be listening to this, and I love you guys, and they stick with it just because of and I respect it, because of their views on the world and saving, these tortured animals, which that is absolutely the right way to look at it. If we're contributing to these caged chickens and tortured animals and pigs that are just treated so badly, then yeah, it's probably better for you to eat more plant-based and not vote with your dollars. You vote with your forks. So I totally respect that. However, there is a right way to eat animal products from animals that were raised in a healthy environment, that were given high quality food, that lived a high quality life. That's what I'm talking about here. So I think the vegan diet is great. There are a lot of issues with it long term. I use it as a cleanse. Earlier this year, me and my girlfriend Natasha, we did a 30-day vegan cleanse. And here's some information from a great book called Vegetarianism, explained by Dr. Natasha Campbell, who I'm going to get on this show. And here's why I believe going vegan long-term is not a good idea. If you look at every corner of the planet, healthy indigenous people ate a mixture of plants and animal foods. And it is the animal food that was actually most valued. The human digestive system in its structure is similar to the gut of predatory animals. We have one small stomach with virtually no microbes in it. Our human stomach is designed to produce acid and pepsin, which are only able to break down meat, fish, milk, and eggs. Our stomach is designed perfectly to digest animal foods. Isn't that interesting? You see, the best building blocks to feed our cell regeneration process comes from animal foods. It comes from high quality meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. And when I say dairy, I mean raw grass-fed dairy. The brain is a fatty organ. In fact, it's 60% fat. It requires fat, cholesterol, and protein. And if we're not getting that in the form of high quality animal products, we're essentially starving our brain. So I had that with brain fog, and my brain was not functioning properly on the vegan diet. Now, with that being said, I think going vegan short term is a wonderful idea. I talk about hormone optimization and diet variation that I learned from Dr. Pompa. We talked about it in episode 1 of the Keto Camp podcast. I'll put a link for that in the show notes. Make sure you go listen to it. The real purpose of plants is that they are cleansers. While plants are unable to feed our bodies to any serious degree, they are wonderful at keeping our bodies clean on the inside. A cleaner body always feels better than a toxic one. That is why so many people feel well on a plant-based diet for the first few weeks. But then when the body has finished cleansing, you need to start feeding it with animal foods. If not, the body will start starving and deteriorating. That's where people get in trouble when they stick with the vegan diet, or any diet for that matter, long term, even the keto diet. The bottom line is this: vegan diets should be seen as a form of fasting. They do not feed the body properly, but provide it with a lot of cleansing. So if you want to learn more about where I got this information, definitely get that book, Vegetarianism Explained by Dr. Natasha Campbell. Now let's get into the Ketotarian book, which we talked about on the last episode with Dr. Will Cole. If you don't have this book, definitely a great book. I think it's important to fill your plate with plants. Like I just mentioned, they're cleansers for the body. So Ketotarian is a great way because it marries the best of low-carb diets and a plant-based way of eating. So keto and plant-based, they are having amazing sex together in this book, while avoiding the common pitfalls that people see with both diets, keto and vegan diets. So you kind of marry them and get the best of both worlds. So here's a quote from his book: "The Ketotarian way of eating brings together healthy plant-based fats, clean protein, and rich, vibrant colors of nutrient-dense vegetables." So he has a lot of recipes in here. The bottom line is this: green leafy vegetables could go hand in hand with ketosis. You could still be in ketosis and eat green leafy vegetables. I recommend eating a bunch of green leafy vegetables in the form of a daily fatty salad. Arugula, bok choy, broccoli, kale. I load that plate with these green leafy vegetables because you're getting the potassium, which the body needs when you're on keto. Potassium is the most important electrolyte that we have. And when we're doing the keto diet, we're losing a lot of our electrolytes, which includes potassium. So a great way to get it back into the diet so you feel great is to eat these green leafy vegetables. And that's why I recommend a daily fatty salad. In his book, Ketotarian, he gives practical tips. He says if you are a vegan, then take in algae-based omega-3s. If you are a vegetarian, then take in some eggs. And eggs, I believe, are Mother Nature's multivitamin. Just make sure they're from a quality source, pastured, healthy chickens. The yolk should be a good, nice orange. The best brand that I've been able to find at commercial grocery stores is from Vital Farms. The best way to buy your eggs is to go to your local farmer's market. But if you're going to a grocery store, I usually get Vital Farms. In his book, he also talks about ways to help detox the body. And episode number 1 and 2, we talked a lot about toxins and how they're creating so much inflammation in the body, preventing your fat-burning hormones and all of your hormones from communicating with your cell, creating dysfunction. So he talks about some delicious ways to actually get these nutrients from plants. And here are some of the list. He says, some of the most powerful phytochelation antioxidants are sea vegetables like chlorella, spirulina, and herbs such as parsley and cilantro. He also recommends onions, broccoli sprouts, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, and mushrooms, saying they are all great at supporting methylation detox pathways. So he talks a lot about inflammation in this book, and his new book, The Inflammation Spectrum, is going to go a little bit deeper. But I love this stuff. Inflammation is key, and these tips are so easy. You just add these foods to your daily routine. He talks about the benefits of green tea and how it activates your NRF2 pathway, which is a longevity gene. Blueberries, ginger, curcumin. I mean, these are teas you could drink throughout the day with your keto diet. They're not going to knock you out of ketosis. So yeah, it can be done. You can be keto and vegetarian. You can be keto and plant-based and do it the right way. A lot of people who are vegetarian and vegan, it's not the same as being plant-based. You could be vegan and eat Oreos and high gluten containing foods and not necessarily be healthy. So there's different ways to do it, just like there's different ways to do the keto diet. I actually have a vegan keto meal plan that I give to all my members of my Keto Camp Inner Circle. And it's very delicious. It's like you won't even know that you're eating a plant-based diet. And I follow this for 30 days sometimes out of the year. Like I said, it's a great way to cleanse the inside. So if you've been following a very high animal protein type of keto diet and you throw in 30 days of a vegan, ketotarian, plant-based, vegetarian, whatever you want to call it, lifestyle, you're going to get a lot of results from that. And I do that from time to time. So if you want to get that vegan meal plan that I have, join my Keto Camp Inner Circle. I'd love to have you in there. If you want to learn more, go to ketocamp.com. Remember, that's Keto Camp with a K. Now, I want to talk about the next thing here. Let's transition into conventional medicine, conventional doctors. I see it all the time. And Dr. Will Cole talked about patients, his new patients that he sees for the first time, and they have this stack of lab reports from going to doctor to doctor to doctor. They don't feel well, but their doctor keeps telling them, your lab ranges look normal. It looks fine. It could be so frustrating, and I see this all the time with new clients that come to me. And if you're in this situation, just know that there are good doctors and practitioners and people out there that are actually going to listen to you. I'm one of them. Dr. Will Cole is one of them, and all the people I'm going to bring on this show, they're doing that. The problem with most conventional doctors, they've been trained so masterfully to diagnose disease and match it to a medication. Will Cole talked about this. He shared, you wouldn't go to your mechanic and ask your mechanic about gardening advice. So you wouldn't go to your doctor and ask your doctor about nutrition advice. They're just not trained on that. That's the sad truth. And I interviewed Dr. Ken Berry, who's going to be on one of these episodes coming up. You're going to hear more about that and his training on well, he's a medical doctor, and his training on nutrition and how it was so limited. When conventional doctors are looking at lab work from patients, they look at it at a very different lens than somebody like myself. They have a very broad range. This reference range, you got to keep in mind that reference range on your blood report is the reference range of all the people, the population in America, if you're in America or whatever country you're in. And there's a lot of sick people out there. We don't want to be sick. We want to be in the optimal range. We want to be in that functional range. So when I look at it from that lens, it's a much shorter lens. So if I see something outside of that, I know that this is a piece to the puzzle. I would never treat a lab work or a piece of paper, but I would look at it as another piece to the puzzle to why that person doesn't feel good. And then I'll explore their history. If your doctor is not exploring your entire health history, that's a problem. If they're not asking you about your dental work, about root canals, silver fillings, about the home you live in, about water damage, molds, and just traumatic events in your life, that's a problem. Doctors are trained to be intellectuals. And Albert Einstein said it best. Intellectuals, they solve problems, yes. But geniuses, they prevent them. We want to be a genius here. We want to be proactive, not reactive. So when you are proactive, you are listening to the Keto Kamp podcasts like this, and you're bringing this information to your doctor. Let's say you bring this and you have him listen to it, and he doesn't even want to listen to it, or she doesn't want to even listen to it, and he gets emotional about it. They get emotional about it. Well, you got to find yourself a new doctor. As difficult as it might be, maybe you've been with them for 10 years. Maybe they're a friend of the family. If they're not willing to listen to you, this is your life. This is your health on the line. You don't want to wait until it gets to a point where you visit this doctor and all of a sudden, oh, you are type 2 diabetic. Oh, there is cancer growing. No, that's an intellectual who's trying to solve a problem there. We want to be a genius and prevent them. If you want somebody to actually dig deep into your health history and get an understanding of what's going on with you, then send me an email. Maybe we could have a conversation. Send an email to ben@ketokamp.com and let's see if I could help you. But they're out there. Dr. Will Cole is one of them. Search, you'll find them. You'll get empowered with the right information. Our job is to start removing the interference that's causing dysfunction in the body. And the body is so amazing, it is so remarkable that once you start removing the interference, it will begin to heal itself. That interference could come from so many directions. It could be mental, emotional stress. It could be eating the wrong diet. Maybe doing keto, but you're doing keto the wrong way. You're eating the wrong types of fats. So there's so many things out there. We want to start removing that interference and let your body have its innate birthright to heal itself. I believe we were designed to live to 120 years old, disease-free, high quality of life. Right now, we're not seeing that. We're seeing people maybe extending their life, but their quality of life is so poor. I don't want to just live longer. I want to have a high quality life and feel great as I do so. So I hope this episode was empowering to you, whether you are vegetarian, vegan, or you're eating keto regularly and you want to add more plant-based foods. I recommend the Ketotarian book. I recommend the Vegetarianism Explained book, and dig a little deeper into the resources we spoke about here. If you need somebody to have a conversation with you about your health, somebody who will listen to you, then send me an email at ben@ketokamp.com. If you have not done so already, please rate and review the Keto Kamp podcast. It would mean so much to me. It would mean so much to the podcast. That's how we get the message out there and we grow this podcast. And I believe this information is transformational. So share it with a friend as well, because you want to be that person that shares an episode and they just fall in love with it and they go back to remembering who got me into keto, and they will say it's you because you shared this episode. So be that person, be that friend, be a stand for your family, for your community. Share it with them. Share it with your sister who's telling you that keto's crazy, or your brother who tells you that you're nuts for fasting. It's powerful when you share something that's third party like this, and they start doing some research and it makes sense to them, and it'll change their life and your relationship with them. So I encourage you to do that. If you haven't gotten my Keto Kickstart Guide, it's a free 12-page ebook, 4 steps to burn fat instead of sugar. Go to www.ketokickstartguide.com. Claim your free download of that book. Also, if you have not subscribed to the Keto Kamp YouTube channel, that channel has a lot of amazing information. 4 brand new videos are being released on that channel, all about keto, all about fasting, and this is happening every single week. So go to youtube.com and type in Keto Kamp, Kamp with the K, subscribe, hit the bell. I go live on that channel every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. If you want to ask me questions, hop on live with me. And I want to thank you for spending part of your day with me. I will see you and you will hear me on the next episode. This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Ben Azadi, disclaims responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not accept responsibility of statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or non-direct interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.